So I am Victoria Emerson, Director of Learning and Development at Projecting Success. A massive warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us on The Only Way is Ethics. Super excited. We were dead proud of this title and I still am. Might be a bit rubbish for the next hour, but it was, we love it. We will also be incorporating in the last 15 minutes the Last Hack Award ceremony. So we'll get cracking and get to it. So I'd really like to introduce you to my work bestie, Tallulah. Would you like to introduce yourself? What's your name and where do you come from?
Yeah, of course. I feel like it is like we're on Towie. I love it. So yeah, my name's Tallulah. My background is kind of started off in traditional computer science, did some games programming, and then went into teaching, back to doing a master's in cloud computing, where I kind of got this love for machine learning, data analytics, data science, and yeah, worked in industry as a data analyst for a bit before joining Projecting Success. So yeah, love all things AI and machine learning related, and especially the ethics. So it's going to be a good one today. Lots of interesting things to have a look at.
Absolutely. We're really excited to have you all. Please feel free to use the chat. So we will use Slido a couple of times, and we're going to open the floor up nearer the end so you can ask lots of questions and we can answer them. And that could be ethics related or AI related or how to get started, or you've already started and you're trying to connect the dots. But in the meantime, feel free to use the chat. And if we have any time, we can look at that after, or I can reply back after the session. So feel free to chat away. Be nice and kind in there, please, everyone, which I know you all will be. The session is recorded, just so you know. If you've got any problems with that, just let Liam know after. Liam Edwards, liam@projectsuccess.co.uk. You please feel free to use the emojis. It just shows me while you're having your sandwiches and your pastas and your fabulous lunches that you're enjoying it. Luckily, there's not a sad face, so I'll just think that if you're using them, you're relatively happy. Please keep yourself on mute, but if we do ask any direct questions or anything like that, please feel free to take it off. And please don't mute us. We're trying to work on the controls at the minute. And we know where the problem is. We're just trying to deal with it. So please don't mute us. Okay, so let's get started. Just a quick one. You can use the QR code from your phone, or you can just type in slido.com and use the hashtag and the code of where you're coming from. So where are you in the world? What do you do? Just so Tallulah and I get a really good idea of how to shape these conversations for you. Basingstoke, Lincoln, Glasgow, Berlin. Ooh. Germany, welcome. Bristol, Jersey.
Love it, a real mix.
Tunbridge, fabulous. Charlie's Chocolate Factory. Wish I was there. Surrey, the UK. Very specific. Very good. Very good. Lancashire, London, Bristol. Ooh. Fabulous. Don't you just love these world class? Aren't they fabulous? Yeah. Loughborough. I think I might know who that is. My data analytics genius. I'm an AI genius and I know who that person is. Bristol. Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see you all here. For those that have got your cameras on, thank you. Swiss, Sheffield, fabulous. What a great bunch. Best in town. We've got a very good theme showing up there. Right then. So before I kick things off, so much has happened this week that I did want to share it with you. So give me some emojis if any of you have started using Microsoft Bing, or do you use Microsoft Bing, shall I say? Fabulous. And Frank, give me another emoji if you are using the Copilot Bing. So this week, if you don't already know, GPT-4 is out. You can go on the waiting list to get the API, but you can get in there and you can still start using sort of for more advanced developers, you can get in there and you start using the GPT 3.5 Turbo. I've used it this week. I'm going to show you a little bit just so you can get started. But if you want to start working with Chat GPT 4 immediately, you can get yourself on. I think the wait list won't take very long at all. It took about 24 hours for me. You can use what's called Microsoft Bing's Copilot. Sorry, my screen's frozen, so I'm just going to turn my camera off. What this does, it is powered by Chat GPT 4, so you will be using it straight away, and it works just like Chat GPT. You ask it, I don't know why it stopped working the video. There we go. You can ask it lots of questions. It can be creative, balanced, precise. It remembers the conversations you've had with it, which is super exciting. And basically, I just got it to do something silly last night and got me to write a poem about dogs. So I asked it to, it remembered, and then it wrote me very quickly a little poem about a cat. Look at that, how sweet. So if you want to get a little bit more technical, like let's say you're a project manager and you are wondering how you can leverage your past data to predict future outcomes for your projects and how long they're going to take and what's going to happen, and this can be applied to any different domain or role out there. Sorry, I had a little brain freeze when I was typing this morning on my little phone. And you can ask it these kind of questions and it will help you. Is it as succinct as ChatGPT? It's flawed in places, and it, as you can see here, it is thinking about it. It is thinking about it, but it does come out with quite a good outcome in the end. Eventually, I only did this about half an hour before. I don't know why I'm so laggy. I'm just gonna keep that camera off for a minute. Let me turn. It paused on itself. Do apologise. There we go. And then basically it gives you kind of a generic answer. But what I really like about the capability is it actually gives you some ideas of where to go and where to look. And also it encourages you to ask more distinct questions. And that's where you'll see more capability. So if you're not already using it, get yourself on Microsoft Bing's Copilot. It is free to use, which is really important. So why not? Also, Microsoft introduced in the last sort of 19 hours. Oh, it's gone. In the last 19 hours, they are introducing their 365, Microsoft's 365 co-piloting tool, which will work with all of Microsoft products, including Word, PowerPoint, Microsoft Teams. It will take your minutes for you. It will write your emails for you. It will write your Teams messages. It will organise your calendar. It'll write project policies. Pretty much everything you see within the Chat GPT space and and the OpenAI space. Microsoft have embedded it within all of their tools. So the capability is going to be endless. The feature that is my favorite is the Excel features. So you can load all of your data in and it'll do all the machine learning for you. It'll do all your dashboards for you. You've just got to guide it like a teacher on what you want it to do. It will answer questions for you. And the main thing is it's going to be so much quicker. So they've not given a launch date. I know they're running trials at the moment. So as soon as we know, if you sign up to the news, we will be letting you guys know. For the people that's on our mailing list, we will keep you in tune. Anybody who's got kids out there, any of you had the kids at home this week because of the teacher strikes? If you're in the UK, did anyone have to give you some emojis? Little kids at home driving you mad? 2 days, nightmare. So first hour was okay on, was it Tuesday? The first hour was fine with the kids. We've got a 7 and a 10-year-old. After about an hour, I wanted to kill. So what I did, instead of killing them, I created a little AI bot for them called Lucy. So I started the AI bot off in the morning. I used OpenAI space to do this, and this was powered by GPT 3.5 Turbo. And basically, it started creating homework for them to do within the day. By the end of the day, they were both on a laptop each, and they were both chatting to their own Lucies, and Lucy was learning along with them, and Lucy was teaching them and marking all of their work. It was fantastic, and it kept them busy all day, because the kids, they just thought they were talking to a robot all day, which essentially they were. So they absolutely adored it. But just showing the capabilities is phenomenal. So it's just to give you some ideas and how you can use it in your daily life. It's not just all about work. So yeah, so that's my little news roundup. I'm going to pass over to Tallulah, who's going to be talking to you about AI in more detail. And if you've got any questions, as I say, just pop them in the chat, and we're going to try and answer as many as possible. So Tallulah, over to you. I'll do the slide deck. I'll be your beautiful assistant, and you just tell me what you want.
Lovely. So yeah, let's get it all up there, show it all off.
That's it.
Love it. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of an overview of AI and ethics. I'm not going to go too much into the technical, so don't worry, I'm not going to go goblin mode and scare you all off. We're going to have a look at some of the advantages, some of the disadvantages of AI, and look at Chat GPT a little bit, and what the pros and cons are. And then I'm going to open up the floor. So if you have any questions, me and Vicky will be here to chat you through them, and yeah, have a little bit of a discussion. So that's the plan. And then obviously we'll go into the hack. So if you're waiting for the hack, I'm not sorry. You will learn a lot from this. So yeah, on to the next one, please, Vicky. Go. And yeah, if you just pop it all up, that'll be brill. Thank you. So as most of you are already using Chat GPT, so you already know kind of the impact of AI, you know, and the fact that it can do so much for us, and not just talking about Chat GPT, but in all sorts of sectors around the world, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in finance, it just has such a positive impact. It transforms our lives for the better. One of the problems, though, is that there are a few traps. So if you do end up falling into these traps, or these big companies who are developing, you know, this amazing software, but you know, it's important we understand what we're dealing with, so that we know the ethical impacts of it. So yeah, lots of good things, but also some negative things as well that it's important we're all aware of. So we'll have a little look next at the background of AI, and see how that works before we look at the pros and cons. So next slide, please, Vicky. Lovely. So like I said, I'm not going to try and scare you off with the technical, but I think it's important we understand what we're working with. What do I mean when I'm talking about AI? What do I mean when I'm talking about machine learning? They are often used interchangeably, but they are a little tiny bit different. So we can see with our nice circles, little visualization, if you're like me and you like a bit of a visual to go with it. We have our kind of what I like to call the family of data science. So lots of different things in there, but machine learning and AI kind of falls into the area of data science. So if you're sat here and you're in data analytics or data science, you'll probably have an understanding of this already. So AI is essentially any program that can sense, reason, act, and adapt. So this is where your kind of humanistic AI comes in, with things like Chat GPT, where it gets the conversation going. It's taking, you know, your real world input and doing some magic with that to generate an output. Machine learning, essentially, the more data it has, the better it's going to be. So models like Chat GPT, the more data they're given, so the more we use it, you know, the better the outcome is going to be. It's going to be exposed to more data over time, which is going to improve its performance. Its knowledge base is just growing and growing and growing with more data. It's very much like a child, really. You know, you give it more information and it learns. It's the same thing, really. And then we have deep learning. So deep learning is a little bit more complex. If you are a programmer here, you probably already have that understanding of kind of the technical elements of it. But essentially that is kind of I'd say the highest level of machine learning, where it's using neural networks. So essentially, you know, computer scientists, I always say we're not very creative. We are, but we're not really, and we've just based it off the human brain. So we've taken what all the biologists have done and all the scientists, and we've just pinched their idea and used it. So yeah, so deep learning is kind of that subset. And it's important to note that, because essentially when we're looking at these large language models like ChatGPT, Chat GPT, it's important to understand, how is it working? What does it do? What's this behind the scenes magic? So yes, next slide, please, Vicky. And essentially, I thought it's just nice to point out that no kind of sector is kind of, I don't know what the right term is. Everyone can be involved, basically. Doesn't matter whether you're in finance, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in travel, whether you're in retail. AI and machine learning can be utilized in all these different sectors. So, you know, I hope no one sat here thinking, oh, this isn't for me. I'm waiting for the hack. This isn't for me. There's always a place you can use it, whether you need, you know, a bit of help writing policies if you're in HR. You know, Chat GPT, we all know it here in L&D. This has been our thing at the minute. It can help support you. So if you've never done this type of stuff before, AI and machine learning can really help you in your role, and not just in terms of technical elements, but also in those softer skills as well.
The last 20 minutes.
Sorry, just want to make sure you're all muted. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, next slide, please, Vicky. And yeah, just the little words there. So no, it's all right. No one's exempt. There's a place for AI and machine learning for everybody.
Even for our 7 and 10-year-old.
Exactly. I know, homework AI. Who'd have thought it? So let's have a little look. Have you used Chat GPT yet? Let's see. Oh, we've got a few no's. See, this will be a little bit homework for you. Go away and have a play. It's amazing. I don't want to say life-changing, but it kind of is. Lovely. So most of us, yes.
And you can also, if you've not used it before, there was a lunch and learn last month. We've got a recording on YouTube. There is a short in there for about 5 minutes, and it will just get you started in there and give you the instructions of how to get started in a little video. So don't feel that you're on your own. We can train you through it.
Lovely. So yeah, a few no's, but mostly yes. Love to see it. And the thing is, if you haven't used it before, I think it's important to note, you know, don't be put off. Sometimes you go on LinkedIn and you see these comments, you know, oh, it's awful, it's hideous, but, you know, go and have a go and try it. And, you know, you might learn something new. So it is a really interesting, exciting platform to just try and get involved in. So definitely recommend it. So in terms of kind of, and like I said, I'm not going to go too technical, but when we're talking about our deep learning and how, you know, models like Chat GPT work, like I said, it's kind of based off the brain. So we've got that input layer, which is kind of your real world sensor. So for example, in Chat GPT, that input layer would be you typing in your question or what you want Chat GPT to, you know, work with. We have our hidden layers, and if you're an apprentice here, you'll always hear me say it's the behind the scenes magic, you know, all the calculations, all the knowledge bases, all that good stuff is in the hidden layers. And depending on the size of the model, this is where it starts getting quite complex in the development, because as you can imagine, it can get very, very tricky and very complicated. So it does all the behind the scenes magic for us. And then the output layer, so that is essentially the response that Chat GPT is generating for us. So it's very different if you come from a technical background already, you know, things like linear regression and so forth. It's very different to that, because we're using these neural networks in order to help us get the most out of it. So yeah, thought it'd be quite nice to brush up on the technical as well.
Tallulah, it's you taught me this. It is like the human brain, isn't it? If you imagine the neurons and the electrodes just signaling to each other, it's just like the human brain. And if you ever watch like TED Talks, like, you know, Alexa, Siri, they're all deep neural networks that are learning all of the time with our own data. So there's some ethical questions to be raised, you know, in a lot of homes, looking at, you know, watching us, hearing us, taking all of our data in, all of our requests. And it actually makes, and this is why ChatGPT have still got their free model out there, because they've got basically 100 million staff working on their free model and training their model to become more intelligent. So that's probably a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's just all these kind of big AI models that you hear about, like Vicky said, your Alexas, your Siris, things, Google Home, all these things are using the same, I don't want to say same types of technology, but same structure with that deep learning. So, it is crazy when you think about how much data they are working with. It's just insane. And this is where the ethics comes into it, really. Like Vicky said, it's that idea of it's constantly listening, it's constantly collecting data. If you come from a technical background, you've done stuff with IoT, Internet of Things devices, you'll know what I'm talking about when it is a constant stream of data. Imagine analysing that. Oh, it's hard. But there are some good things. There are some good ethical points that I think are important to note. And I think one of the biggest ones, especially for me, is improved efficiency. There are things that I was doing before that were taking me a lot of time. And with the help of Chat GPT, it has saved me so much time on jobs which used to take me a long time. So, for example, I do a lot of the data security. I'm the information security manager. Now, one of my tasks recently was to update the data security induction. Great, love it, so it's fine. The bit of the tricky task comes from making a quiz out of the said PowerPoint. That is time consuming. So ChatGPT helped me. And, a job that used to have, taken me maybe an hour, maybe more, now takes 10 minutes. So it's this idea of improved efficiency in jobs that used to take a long time. Now we can get a bit of help to support us. I think accessibility is a great one as well, because, I don't know about you guys, but using Chat GPT has allowed me to kind of improve my skills on areas that I was unfamiliar with before. And it's the idea of I don't have to pay loads of money to go on a course. I don't have to, source someone to train me necessarily. I can get kind of the support and guidance I need. It means that a lot of content and topics and ideas that were a bit inaccessible to me before are now very accessible. Support with Excel or Power BI, DAX formulas, things like that. I can now quickly get support with. Yeah, go for it, Vicky.
Yeah, and I think on the accessibility point is we're playing around with accessibility, in all languages. ChatGPT can translate in all languages. We can have live scripts. We can, soon we will be able to run sessions for including sign language, but it's all automated. So as we're talking, it's translating into sign. So it's so much more accessible to people where it wasn't accessible before. So there's just so much capability across every industry. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's amazing, just the capabilities and what it's going to look like in the future, and making all these complex topics just accessible for everyone and anyone. It makes it a more diverse and more interesting space to be in. And I think that's one of the best things about tech, is that it's just exciting and innovative. So yeah, accessibility is a big one. Obviously, enormous capabilities. I had to put the enormous in there because it really is. There's so much you can do with this. Like I said before, so many different sectors, whether, like I said, you're in healthcare, you're in finance, you're, in recruitment, wherever you are, there are enormous capabilities involved with AI and machine learning, especially when we're thinking from a Chat GPT perspective. There's just so much you can do with it. And like Vicky mentioned with the accessibility, that's just a handful of things that it can do and we can embed in the future. So, that's just one string of it. There's loads more as well. So I think, the capabilities are amazing. And like Vicky mentioned, in the last lunch and learn, we went through a few of those, and Vicky has changed my life with Chrome extensions. So if you haven't seen that, please go and watch it, because it's amazing.
And I have noticed I've got a Chrome extension that updates me on new tech coming out every single day that I built, and I've noticed that loads of people are building loads of Chrome extensions, which is brilliant. So if you haven't watched it, watch it, build some Chrome extensions.
I love it. But no, really amazing, really innovative. And I put cost effective as well, because I do think that AI tools and technologies especially when you're thinking about it from a kind of business and organization perspective, it is cost effective. You know, you don't have to have 10 people working on one job now. If you want to do forecasting and things like that, you can have one person doing it in a very short amount of time. So it's kind of links in with that idea of improved efficiency and therefore cutting costs in businesses. Now, this isn't to say, you know, there's this whole debate that robots are going to take our jobs, and that's not it. You know, it's the people who can use AI and utilize it in their role who are really going to thrive and succeed. So yeah, this isn't thinking about the robots taking over and all that kind of end of the world stuff. It's much more positive than that. Not to panic anyone. And oh, look at my mean little robot there. Tried to make him with the Mid-Journey. Amazing. Again, if you haven't used Mid-Journey, life-changing. You know, you don't have to Google and search for all the pictures. It just does it for you. It's amazing. And it's also interesting to see what other people are making as well. Just FYI, bit of a nosy, but I'm nosy, so I love it. So yes, bias is a huge thing in AI and machine learning, because like we mentioned before, these models, they have to have data to train themselves on. So an example I sometimes think about when I'm talking about bias is you know, this idea of a gender wage gap. And if you were training a model to kind of predict salaries, if it was looking at historical data where traditionally maybe women got paid less than men, it would learn about that. Okay, it would take on that bias, it would absorb it, it would learn it again, just like a small child, and it would implement that in the model. So it is really important that, you know, bias is considered not only in the development, but I think in the use of AI. You know, even if you're an end user, it's really important you understand that this is, you know, something that could happen. There's loads of really interesting cases about this, especially a big one in America, quite recent actually, where they used AI to try and figure out whether people would reoffend again. So if they've committed a crime, are they likely to reoffend? That it was hugely biased and was hugely racist, and it was in the court system. So people were getting their sentences based on this technology, which was biased. And then obviously it was very unfair. So there's lots of really great examples with bias that are interesting to look at. Compute efficiency. This sounds very technical. Oh yeah, before I go for this, go for it, Vicky.
Just a quick question. So Tallulah, what you're saying is, I kind of already know the answer, but if I wanted to train my Lucy, for example, to torment my husband Liam, would it actually do that? Like put the bias in and give it ideas of how to torment him?
Yes, yeah, and you see this a lot in kind of examples, especially when you're looking at kind of the younger generation and using AI. But yeah, essentially it picks up on all that kind of negativity, it takes it on board, and yeah, it would come up with some, I'd say probably creative insults, but that's one for a debate. But yeah, so it takes on board, and there's been lots of kind of things about cyberbullying and internet safety, and you could literally, you know, use these AI and machine learning tools to, like I say, come up with insults or reword things, and it's not great, but is one of the things that it can do when we're thinking about capabilities. So yeah, not a good one. But compute efficiency is an interesting one, and actually one that I really only started thinking about not that long ago. There was a Panorama program on cloud computing, which links in quite nicely with it. So obviously I'm like, wow, Panorama's picked up on cloud, amazing, love it. Getting the message out there. But it was really interesting when it was thinking about sustainability. And I think the last time I looked, 1% of the world's energy consumption came from data centers. So when you're thinking about how these models are built and they're technical behind the scenes, it needs a lot of computer power to build these. Think supercomputers. You know, you have your laptop, think of 1,000 laptops all merged together. That is your supercomputer. That's all the power. But think of the energy oh my gosh, the environment, the polar bears, it's not great. So yeah,
and
it's something that
we
you
could be
wouldn't
getting a bit like Terminator,
exactly.
going a bit too far. Skynet.
Yeah. But
This
it's
is why we've
definitely
got
one
a
to think
Mally to
about.
protect us.
I know, yeah. I'm still waiting for Vicky to build me a 7-foot Mally. I'm waiting for
7-foot
it.
Mally
Yeah,
that loves the
7-foot Mally. I think
cats. It'll be fine.
that'll look great. It'll be good. But yeah, sustainability and technology is something that's been kind of ongoing for a while. You know, we think about recycling phones and things like that, but we actually don't think about the sustainability with these AI models that are using all this power and energy. So it can be a disadvantage. And I think with the way the world is going, it's probably only going to get higher with that energy consumption. So definitely one which people will need to look at in the future. Automation of attacks. So this has been a big thing. If you're on LinkedIn and have seen kind of any cybersecurity news relating to Chat GPT, I think they've done quite a good job in trying to detect when people are trying to curate, build, design malicious code. But I think the biggest flaw at the minute is actually in social engineering attacks. So think of your phishing emails and all that kind of bad stuff. And there would be nothing to stop somebody from going onto Chat GPT, finessing, you know, a phishing email and sending it out to people. So, you know, Chat GPT can be used for these kind of social engineering attacks. You know, when I used to teach internet safety back in the day at schools, we used to go through an example of a phishing email and, oh, what's wrong about this? You know, what would stand out? And they're like spelling mistakes and, you know, things like that, your traditional ones. Well, how would you be able to detect? It's not going to have those key features we're used to seeing in phishing emails, which is going to make it harder for people who aren't used to using technology to be able to differentiate between what is a phishing email and what is a normal, you know, marketing email. So lots of negativity around the kind of cyber security element of what the capabilities are with things like Chat GPT and all these kinds of attacks. So yeah, a bit of a negative one, but still important to think about when you're using it. I've put inequality here because I know, and you're going to be like, oh, she's a hypocrite, she put accessibility in the other one. I know it goes both ways. Okay, so inequality is a big one. You may have heard of something called the digital divide. You know, thinking about who has access to this kind of technology and who doesn't. You know, we are living in a country where you know, there are children living in poverty. They don't have access to laptops and phones and things like that, which is going to put them at a huge disadvantage. That digital divide is only going to get bigger with the people who can access it and the people who can't access it. So how do we kind of bridge that digital divide and make sure that gap isn't getting bigger? And it's the same in organizations. You know, from a business perspective, the organizations who can use this will thrive, and the organizations who aren't equipped to deal with AI and machine learning, they're going to suffer because the organization is going to take over with, you know, the capabilities that you can offer with AI and machine learning. So yeah, I think inequality is an important one to pick up as well. Lovely. Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, you know, we talk with a marketing company quite regularly, and they, you know, they're interested in some of our training, and they're going to design machine learning models using ChatGPT and natural language to automate all of their marketing strategies and hunt the web and scrape contact details and do all of this stuff that would take months upon months, an age to do, and a massive team. And if they learn this stuff, every other marketing company around them are going to go down quite quickly. So the more people develop, it will create a bigger divide. So I think it's a really important point. It's something that we weren't thinking about probably about even 4 weeks ago. So
yeah, I know, it's just the landscape's always changing, and I think that's, you know, it's one of my favorite things about tech and the industry is how there's always something new. So yeah, it's always good to know.
So thank you so much for that, Tallulah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to the next sort of 10 minutes, see how we go, before we start with the hack. is we are going to put it over to you guys. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask Tallulah or I, both of us, one of us, both of us, ideally. Team T and B. So any questions you can any questions around ethics, Chat GPT, how do I get started? How do I start learning? How do I develop? Any concerns, you know, put it on the platform. Let's see. And I don't know whether there's anything in the chat. I've not had a little look in there yet, but we will wait. I can see participants are typing.
I love Slido. It's always really exciting when I see that.
And again, a piece of technology that engages remote groups. I mean, during COVID, this was a miracle to be able to teach and consult and make it as interactive as possible. When you're not face to face, it is a different landscape. Either people are changing their minds, they're asking a really long question. Please don't use Chat GPT to ask the questions, because I might have to break her out. How do we govern content moderation? Who should set and enforce moderation policies? I've got an answer to that, but I'll let Tallulah go first.
Oh, well, it's a tricky one. And it's really, I guess, concerning in this idea of data privacy and who owns data and that kind of argument. But I think one of the problems that has kind of cropped up at the minute is what can people do with AI and machine learning that isn't embedded within things like the Computer Misuse Act, because there are things in there which easily lay out what you can and kind of can't do with AI in terms of, you know, terrorism and things like that. But there's been a lot of misuse of AI pornography, for example, with celebrities or influencers, or whatever you want to call them, deep fakes. Yeah, so it's what is there in place to govern that? You know, it's technically not illegal because it's AI generation, so but it's hugely inappropriate and you know, completely misusing someone's data in a sense of their photos. You know, that is data as well, unstructured data. So yeah, I guess there are still areas that are unclear. I definitely think there needs to be a bit more governance. But yeah, Vicky, what would you say on it? Because it's an interesting one.
We're teaching at the moment that we are running, society's running to catch up with this stuff, and it's almost running away from us. So it will be a chicken and egg, and I think the chicken's already won. So at the moment, you know, for me, when you sign into Microsoft and you start, you know, using Azure products, they ask you to use their AI resources ethically. That just won't be enough, will it? Because anyone can go in there and do what they so please. OpenAI have been putting a lot into policy, and I have noticed that if we're talking on the Chat GPT space, they have been putting a lot into policy. So, for example, they're now regulating that so if you've got any proprietary data, so private and confidential business information, you shouldn't be putting it into the free Chat GPT version, because they can see it and they can do what they want with it. But what they've now done is, if you pay for Chat GPT or use OpenAI, that will be confidential and it will protect your data. So they are, particularly OpenAI, are catching up with it. But I'd say from an organizational level, you've got to be all over your policies, your usage policies, your content policies, who owns what, you know, and where, and you know, and how it's being used. And it's all about training and development as well. So I hope that helps a little bit. So we're going to, you mentioned about bias causing in the court system based on drawing public data as a source and the inherent bias being in the data. How do you go about addressing that bias in an ethical manner? That's a good question.
Yeah, very, very good, because it can be hard to do. You know, you think of things like human error. It's a big thing in cybersecurity, happens a lot. But I think actually, Vicky, it plays on quite nicely to what you were saying before about training. And it really is just so important, if you are managing data or dealing with data or handling data, that you understand the data security and you know, the ethical impacts of misusing that data or mishandling that data, and how to spot things like this in you know, historical trends, and you know, really understand how to use data. If you don't know about data and you're being asked to do something with data, it's very hard to know about the background. So yeah, I think ensuring that there's kind of it's not just one person responsible in dealing with a data set, or you know, lots of data, and also just training. I think those are kind of the two biggest things to help eliminate bias, because it is one of the biggest things in AI and machine learning. So yeah, I think those two routes would help support that.
Oh, this is a brilliant question. Recently there was controversy about AI generated art stealing work without permission. I'm presuming what you mean by that is somebody's created some art and then somebody else has stolen it and claimed it as their own. So I'll take that. Do you see a similar issue arising with code generated by Chat GPT? Is Chat GPT producing original code or returning code that is seen before? So we've got two questions. First of all, break it down. The first question, Midjourney and DALL-E 2 are two very popular, they're not the only two, that generate AI, artificial intelligent art. You put the prompts in, it returns imagery. Some of you know this, some of you don't, so that's why I'm explaining it. The code in Midjourney is accessible to all, and you sign up and you agree that it's accessible to all. So if somebody nicks it, like if somebody nicks my art, I know that that's what I signed up for. So people will kick off, but they won't get very far because it's all in the policy within Midjourney. However, I know a trick to make it completely private. So I will be doing a Midjourney session. So if you want to create completely private images that no one can see and access, I know how to do it. So that's for a later course. And if you're interested in that kind of course, put it in the chat so I'll get some ideas of what you want in these future lunch and learns every month. So if Midjourney is your thing and you want to know more about this, put that in the chat. So the second question, coding. So I've got a lot of our team on here. I've got James Chalice. He's marvel in writing code. So if you asked me to write some code, and James will probably do it better, but then not if I use Chat GPT, especially Mally. But James will write it one way, I'll write it probably a little bit of a different way. Will we get the same outcome? I don't know, but it's a difficult one, because at the end of the day it will get to the quickest answer the most effective way. So it has learned that. So it is likely that two people in the world or more could see the same very similar code out there, like matplotlib. It's kind of a very simple code. So we give that to our learners so they can use that to create basic linear regression models. So they're just putting their own data in. The only uniqueness is the data that you're putting into it. So Mally's unique. Could Mally be stolen right now? No one can get to his code. So that's how to look at it. But will it produce the same? Likely, yeah. Has there been an increase in project hack submissions using AI? Now we've got Warwick on the call for that one. Warwick's our product manager, sorry, Warwick. Have we seen an increase?
I think there's been an increase in interest. I think a lot of people, compared to how it was in the past, a lot of people are now more aware. So often think about if it's something worth including. But I think not everything does get solved with AI. Not everything needs AI. But many things do. And I think where it can be of help and where it is of the most help, people find it more accessible and easier to include. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Fabulous. We'll keep going for another few minutes just to see if we can just get through these questions. Are we turning into a race of AI monkeys? Answers at the hit of a button. Will we lose the art of actually learning? It's something that does concern me, because obviously with Lucy Wednesday with the kids, is Lucy just going to give them the answers, which would make absolutely no sense because they're not learning anything. So But I did work with Lucy for an hour on don't give them the answers. That's not what we want. If you're just going to use Chat GPT just to answer all your questions, it's likely that intelligence levels could go down. But I think it's the user. It's how you're going to leverage it. What are you going to use it for? If you're using it for business intelligence, you're going to get smarter. Your business is going to get smarter. You're going to have more money. If you use it just because you can't be bothered to learn the back end of it and what it's all about and you know and how to do it ethically, then potentially, yeah, there's no right or wrong answer to that, I don't think. Warwick?
I just wanted to sort of hop in there and say I think the future for this is very exciting, but I think it's still very unclear. I think a great example would be some of you here will have been expected to memorize your times tables in secondary school and learn all of the calculations essentially off by heart, whereas people often, perhaps those who are particularly young or more recently gone through the education system, you're much more comfortable just using a calculator and not bothering with the times tables. I think the question is that the right thing? Is it better to memorize them, or is it better to use the technology available? I think you'll find that people fall either side. You know, there's not an agreed upon answer of which one is better, but things change with the technology, and I think there's quite an exciting space of what might be possible going forward.
That's fantastic, thank you. So as the material as the material available to train GPT becomes more and more generated by GPT, will it become sort of inbred from a language perspective? What are the implications for language, vocabulary, writing style? It's unclear. You know, can you remember with the texting and kids write, not just kids, you write you instead of you, you know. That won't occur, but it will. I tell you what will happen, it will become easier to, because even the model in OpenAI that looks for plagiarism can't see it's AI generated. It's 50-50 shot, so you might as well not bother because it's 50-50. You might as well just guess. It will get smarter at figuring out what's AI generated, because, and you know, I've heard a few people say to me, I wish I'd have had this when I was at uni. I kind of do as well, but but that's a real ethical problem, isn't it? We're going to have to think about our education and how we are asking candidates to do things, because everything could end up just being all written by AI. But I do think you need some intelligence, because it doesn't get everything right, and I have picked that up quite a lot because I do use it every day. So I hope that helps. What's the... Go on, sorry, Warwick.
Sorry, I was just going to quickly say I really like that comment about is it going to become inbred, because it's something that I wholeheartedly sort of fear as well. When Chat GPT or GPT-3 was in sort of its closed beta and more only accessible to people with like a business reason to have it, things were always very professional going into it. It was using scholarly documents, people talking to it with very professional structure, whereas now it's more in the open. People tend to argue with it and disagree with it and feed it negative information more. And I do think it's really interesting whether a language model like this is destined to die on the basis that people will be, with more access to people, it will begin learning more wrong things. So I think that's a really interesting point, and only time will tell.
Very much so. And very, very quickly, what's the distinction to be made between compliance and ethics? How do we navigate the lawful, unethical? I think that's, you know, for me, for right now, I think that's following the law that we're governed by. Yeah, following, you know, whatever country you're in, you know, following the law that governs us, and you're never going to go wrong. If you break the law, whether it's online or down the street, you're breaking the law. So I do, but again, like we said earlier, I think it was all going to be about policy, catching up with it, making sure your team have got the right training, that you've got the right training, and data security will become king. So the very last one, I've never used Chat GPT. I often wonder whether people's drive to learn new things and challenge themselves intellectually is stunted as a result of the prevalence of technology in our lives. When people have access to information quickly and easily, they may become too reliant on their devices and lose their will to work. What is your opinion? I think it's a balance. I think, you know, we've looked at the advantages and the disadvantages. There are clear advantages, you know, there really, really are. But wherever there are advantages, there are disadvantages. So, you know, it's a brilliant ethical question, but I think it comes down to personal preference as well. You know what, you don't have to use this stuff. But if you do want to leverage the most out of it, then, you know, we're your guys. Okay, cool. It was just quickly to say, if you are interested in any free and funded training, please get in touch with us. Comment in the chat, we'll look at it later. Send us an email. Remember what Tallulah said, AI will not replace you. The person using AI will. Okay. Next Lunch and Learn set for April, and we're going to be working with one of my gaming experts, Adam Caddo. And we're going to be looking at a peek behind the curtain. So for all you technical whizzes who want to know more of what's behind that curtain, what Tallulah alluded to, we're going to be going behind the curtain of GPT 3, 4, 4. So you learn all about it if you've got access to 4, to be fair. The next pack is at Man City in June. So you could come along, grab yourself a ticket. If you're already a student with ours, the ticket is free. So get your code from Liam. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the hack, or you'd like to come with a stand, show off your tech, just let us know. Liam again, he's a popular guy. Sign up for news. Sign up for news. All tech news. As soon as we get updates, we will get to you and let you know. Follow me on LinkedIn. I put loads of weird and wonderful wacky things in there. I've got people all over the world creating wacky Google Chrome extensions now, so I'll come up with some really weird ideas because I'm quite a bit of an active imagination. Follow Martin if you're from the project management space and you want to leverage your data in that space. Please follow Martin. He's a great influencer and he has some great articles. And that's all from me.